Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another discussion of the Quran. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And make sure you like, comment, all that. So in our last video, we were talking about Musa and the 5 women in the story with Musa in Surah Al-Qasas, chapter 28, who helped to bring Musa through his different stages in his journey, beginning with his mother, Imra'atu Fir'aun, the wife of Fir'aun, then his sister, and then the 2 women at Midian, who helped him go through this journey and then eventually bring down this toxic, masculine, power-driven man, Fir'aun. So today I want to add another layer to this. We're going to dissect this in stages. So today I want to point out a really interesting thing about the story of Musa in Surah Al-Qasas. And that is that if you look at the story of Yusuf and the story of Musa, you find something similar said about both of them, but a little bit different, and we want to explore why it's different. So first, what's similar, and I'll point out what's different. So if we look at what was said about Yusuf in 12:22, the Quran tells us, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. And when he reached his age of full strength, we gave him judgment and knowledge. When he reached his age of full strength, we gave him judgment and knowledge. Now about Musa, it says, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. And when he reached his age of full strength, wastawa, it adds a word that's not in the statement about Yusuf. See, listen to the statement of Yusuf again. وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. And when he reached his age of full strength, we gave him judgment and knowledge. But when it came to Musa, he added the word wastawa. What is istawa? Roughly, we can say to become balanced. So he added something with Musa. That's very interesting. وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. And when he reached his age of full strength and became balanced, we gave him judgment and knowledge. So why the difference? Why with Musa did he have to become balanced after reaching his age of full strength? And with Yusuf, it just mentions that he reached his age of full strength. So let's look for some clues within the surah itself. And this is a very useful way of studying the Quran, that when you're studying a verse in a surah and you want to understand deeper about what that verse means, you can look all over the Quran, because Al-Qur'anu yufassiru ba'duhu ba'da. The Quran explains itself. So you can look all over the Quran to find related verses, related words, all those types of things. But one of the good places to start is within the surah that verse is in. Because generally, the surah that it's in has themes running through it that are very particular to that surah. So if you can find other themes in that surah, it'll help you connect the verses together. So is there something in the story of Musa that helps us understand why the addition of this word with respect to him that's not an addition with respect to Yusuf? وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى. Why was it, and when he reached his age of full strength and he became balanced? So I believe that this has to do with the women in the story. And let me tell you why. Especially the woman he ended up marrying. Because remember, when he went to Midian, let's review that. When he went to Midian, there were 2 women. وَلَمَّا وَرَدَ مَاءَ مَدْيَنَ. When he came to the water of Midian, وَجَدَ عَلَيْهِ أُمَّةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ يَسْقُونَ. He found there a group of people drawing water. وَوَجَدَ مِن دُونِهِمْ امْرَأَتَيْنِ تَذُودَانِ. And he found 2 women that were staying back. قَالَ مَا خَطَبُكُمَا. He said, what is your situation, or what is the matter with you? قَالَتَا. They both said, لَا نَسْقِي حَتَّى يُسْتِرَ الرِّعَاء. They said, we are not able to draw water, or we do not draw water until the shepherds depart. وَأَبُونَا شَيْخٌ كَبِيرٌ. And our father is a very old man. فَسَقَى لَهُمَا. So Musa drew the water for them. And then the story continues where he ends up eventually meeting their father. And their father says, قَالَ إِنِّي أُرِيدُ أَنْ أُنْكِحَكَ إِحْدَى بَنَتَيَّ هَاتَيْنِ. He said, I intend, or I want to marry you to one of these 2 daughters of mine. So it was meeting the 2 women at Midian that led him to getting married eventually. So now I believe there's a clue in that to understand why is there the addition of this word wastawa. So if we turn the page, so after, because what was the condition of him getting married to one of those 2 daughters? Well, the man at Midian tells him, على أن تأجرني ثمانية حجج, that you worked for me for 8 years. فَإِنْ أَتْمَمْتَ عَشْرًا فَمِنْ عِنْدِكَ. But if you complete 10, that is something from you that you're doing voluntarily of your own accord. So after he finished the prescribed period, let's read what it says. So if we turn the page, it says, فَلَمَّا قَضَى مُوسَى الْأَجَلَ وَسَارَ بِأَهْلِهِ آنَسَ مِنْ جَانِبِ الطُّورِ نَارًا. So when Musa completed this prescribed period and he traveled with his family, he perceived from the side of the mountain a fire. Now this fire is significant because if you keep reading here and in other places in the Quran, this is when Allah addressed him and spoke to him and taught him. Now notice, he didn't get a chance to interact with Allah and for Allah to address him and to speak to him and to give him knowledge and wisdom until when? Until after the journey with these 5 women at different stages of his life, culminating with him getting married and leaving and departing with his family. So he had to go through this journey where he encountered these 5 women, beginning with his mother and ending with his wife, before he got to the point where Allah addressed him until he was ready. He had to go through this journey until he was ready to get to that point, to be prepared for that point in his life, right? So now let's look at this verse here where it speaks about him finishing that prescribed period, and let's compare it to the verse that we're analyzing. So this is verse 29 in chapter 28. فَلَمَّا قَضَى مُوسَى الْأَجَلَ. So when Musa finished the prescribed time, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ, in the other verse, right? And when he reached his age of full strength. وَسَارَ بِأَهْلِهِ. Now look at the other verse. وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى. فَلَمَّا قَضَى مُوسَى الْأَجَلَ وَسَارَ بِأَهْلِهِ. See the symmetry there? See how it fits together? So when Musa finished the prescribed period and traveled with his family, I argue, and Allah knows best, is symmetrical to the other verse when he says, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى. And when he reached his age of full strength and became balanced. فَلَمَّا قَضَى مُوسَى الْأَجَلَ. When Musa finished the prescribed time period was when he reached his age of full strength. وَاسْتَوَى, and he became balanced, is equivalent to وَسَارَ بِأَهْلِهِ. He traveled with his family. So him becoming balanced was him getting married, him having a woman in his life to balance him. And it makes a lot of sense when you study this surah as a whole, because the women in this story demonstrated a different kind of way of approaching power and influence. Because the masculine kind of way of approaching power and influence is that just direct domination like Fir'aun was trying to do, right? But the women in this story is very interesting. The mother of Musa, what did she do? She placed him in the sea, right? Then the wife of Fir'aun, how did she stop Fir'aun from killing him? She said, "La taqtuluhu, asa an yanfa'ana." He might benefit us. Don't kill him. Perhaps he might benefit us. أو نتخذه ولدا, or we might take him as a child. So she presented it in a way to make it palatable, where Fir'aun and the people with him wouldn't kill him. She didn't directly resist it. So it's kind of like an indirect resistance or an indirect influence. And then look at his sister. His sister said, هل أدلكم على أهل بيت يكفلونه لكم. Shall I not guide you to a household that would take care of him for you? And that's how he got returned to his mother. So look at the indirect influence here, right? So Musa, if you look at Musa's story in other places in the Quran, Musa is a direct confrontational person. Look at what he did with Harun. What did he do with Harun? He threw the tablets and he grabbed Harun and drug him to him, right? So Musa, when he went with his teacher, right, in Surah Al-Kahf, right, when they went to the ship, when they met the boy, when they went to the people of the town, and his teacher fixed the wall, each time Musa did what? He objected. He spoke up. Musa's a direct confrontational person. But in this story, you notice the women in this story are kind of indirect about how they approach power and influence, right? And so perhaps that's the balance that Musa needed. And that's why وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى. There's this addition that's here with him that's not there with Yusuf. When he reached his age of full strength and he became balanced, آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. We gave him judgment and knowledge. And I'll compare that to this verse. فَلَمَّا قَضَى مُوسَى الْأَجَلَ, meaning وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ, when Musa finished the prescribed period, meaning when he reached his age of full strength, وَسَارَ بِأَهْلِهِ, and he traveled with his family, meaning وَاسْتَوَى, he became balanced, آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا, we gave him judgment and knowledge, which is equivalent to آنَسَ مِنْ جَانِبِ الطُّورِ نَارًا, he perceived from the side of the mount a fire. So it was when he went through this experience and became balanced by getting married and having a wife that he was able to be in a position where he was ready for Allah to address him. And Allah knows best. Salamun alaikum. Again, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. More videos are coming. Salamun alaikum.